HUD, you went back to Texas.
Yes.
Because you'd been there for the Rough Riders, and then you returned there for HUD. And
this was down in, not in San Antonio, Texas. HUD was made in a little small place called Claude, Texas. That was my first picture with Martin Ritt, who I think is a very fine director.
And you aimed at a very realistic and unglossy style in it. You had a very...
yes. When I went to talk to Mr. Ritt about the assignment, he said, Jimmy, he says, you know, well, we're going to make this picture around this country. I don't think you're going to like it. There's nothing there much to photograph. He said, I don't know what you're going to do. He said, oh, we're going to have the sky and flat plains.
Yeah.
He said, do you think that we can put clouds in? I said, yes, we can put clouds in. But what kind of cloud do we want? Storm clouds or fleecy clouds? So we looked at clouds, stock shots. Oh, for a week we looked at clouds. Because we could double print them in. I said, well, clouds are good, but it's going to handicap your camera movements. When you zoom in or go in for close-ups, what are you going to do with the clouds then? Oh, he said, well, we'll just use them in certain long shots. I said, fine. He said, well, next week we'll go down and look at the locations. I'll take you down and then see what you think about it. I don't think it's... I like to have you do this film because I like to be working with you because I thought of you often but never got the opportunity to get together. So he said, we'll go down and look at the location, see what you think. By that time, he'd given me the script, and I read it. And I liked the story. And I could see the nature of the story was this family that lived on this ranch with thousands of acres, raising cattle. And the loneliness, isolation. So when we went down and looked at the location, I thought the very important thing was not to see any other farms or anything around, but just flat land as far as you could see, and sky. And to see how isolation and the loneliness could be. Now, I couldn't see clouds in it. It would become too decorative. Make it look a little too pretty. Because I don't think that story was a pretty, one of beautiful scenery. It was the harshness of it, the bleakness. So I said to Marty, I said, Marty, I think it's wrong to put clouds in these scenes. I think the thing is if we do have clouds, I would have to put a filter in it to filter them out, to keep the hot sky and the hot ground, and these people are sandwiched in between, you see. That, I think, would be the kind of a mood and a style we should have. And always you hear the wind blowing a little, and little swirls of dust coming up now and then, you see. because now you have the housekeeper. She's the woman there, and she takes care of the house. And, and you see this dust, and you can understand what the problems she would have, and besides just cooking for them and so on. So he said, well, that's a good idea. So when we went down there to work, many days we didn't have clouds. It was wonderful. But then certain days there would be clouds. You just can't control it, you see. So I have to put on the filter and take the clouds out. The only time I left a few clouds in was in the sequence where they're killing the cattle. They took a huge pit and they drove these cattle, hundreds of heads of cattle down to shoot them. Frightful scene. And I thought that was stark enough. And I said to Marty, I said, there's a few clouds that, shall we leave them in or shall I wipe them out? Oh, he said, well, for this, we just better leave them in. Because I always consult with the director about making these decisions because I didn't want to leave it to myself. I think that's the wonderful thing of working together. You have a relationship that you talk these things out, discuss it, and see. Mm-hmm. And I always have great respect for the director. And I think that's the way that cameramen should work. You have the director and cameraman have respect for each other.
You contribute a great deal of your own.
Yes.
As well, creatively.
And creatively we can discuss these things and talk them out. And if there's mistakes made, well, we both make them. We can't always be right.
Where was Hombre shot?
Hombre was shot down in Arizona out of Tucson.
Did you enjoy working with Paul Newman?
Yes, I like Paul Newman. I work with him. I never had much a closer relationship with him. He's a nice fellow. He go about his own way. He's quiet, never says much. I couldn't quite never figure him out.
He's very cooperative.
Maybe I don't think he could figure me out either,
Was he cooperative in terms of
very
lighting?
Very cooperative. All I can remember Paul Newman is he goes and does his work. He gets in the scene. He does it so easy, you don't know how he comes about, but that's what makes him a great artist. He just does things very easy. He seems to simplify things,
Any special memories of Hombre?
Yes, I have. Remember, Hombre was. There was one sequence where they kept going up and up.
Side of a hill.
Side of a mountain, yes. To the mine. And they were waiting for these thieves to come and attack the stagecoach. The one thing I remember was that we had to go down about 500 feet down in this gully to photograph what do you call them, the bandits?
Yes.
And it was easy going down, Charles, but then we forgot that you have to climb back up. Not as young as I was when I made the Alaskan and all these. That was about, 3 years ago. Well, I was probably about 68 or 9 then, huh? So they had to tie ropes We had to hang on to the ropes and hang on and walk up. And do you know, I didn't give out, but a lot of the older players, Frederick March, that's a man I was worried about. Now, Frederick said he was about my age, but I'm quite sure that he's a little older than I am.
Yes.
See? But he always said, you know, Jimmy, I'm only about a year older than you. I said, oh, well, you know, that's wonderful, Frederick. How you can just, you don't seem to be that old, you see. But I knew damn well he was about 5 years older than me. But we had to send down oxygen, especially for the women, to climb up and down these steep cliffs. Now, when you look at the movie, you sit there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and enjoy it, but you don't really know what the actors and the crew and people go through to making them. But you get involved so that you forget, and you never think about the difficulties. Now, like going down into this valley in the gulch, 400 feet down, and you just keep working, you're working and working. Before you know it, you're down 400 feet. You never realize, well, you have to climb back up there.
There are quite a few hazards in shooting westerns.
Oh, yeah, you're not only worried about the people climbing ahead of you, kicking rocks down at you, and you got to be careful where you put your hand, because you don't know where a rattlesnake might jump up any time.
In those western locations, yes.
Oh, yeah, and these cactus, the sharp needles, you have to wear boots, and boots are heavy. And you got to be careful where you put your hand. That's the most dangerous thing, is that you could put your hand on a rock and there'll be a rattle there.
I'm always amazed by their shots into arrows, flights of arrows from Red Indians.
Oh.
How they shoot directly into those without them actually hitting the camera or the crew.
Well, they got pretty good arrowmen, They can... Most of these arrows, naturally they're rubber pointed. But still, it's dangerous. There are many dangers, there are many risks when you're making a movie. Many people have been hurt, but of course they have stuntmen to do all these stunts for the stars, because no one's going to risk a star rolling down a cliff or jumping out of a two-story building. It shouldn't be done. You shouldn't expect a star to do that.
In Tom Sawyer, there's a very interesting scene there where the children are lost in the cave, in the giant cave, and after the picnic, and then Victor Jory, as the Red Indian, Injun Joe, falls into the chasm.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that achieved by some kind of reverse shot?
Yes, that was done by what we call match shots, where he falls down in that chasm, you see. Tom Sawyer was my first Technicolor picture made with Selznick, for Selznick. I enjoyed working in that picture because I enjoyed working with kids.
You had a special device, I think, to suggest the glow of candles as they're making their way through the darkness.
You see, there are many things you can use in color dramatically. I thought when we were working on the caves, they walked around with this candle as the only light source. So Tommy Sawyer was wondering how you're going to get out of this cave. They're lost. So I thought, well, it's wonderful. Here now we have color. Excuse me. We got candlelight. It's a soft yellow glow. Now let's have him walk around this cave looking how he's going to get out. And he's holding this candle. And suddenly his hand goes through a white light. The color changes. And he wonders what happened. And it makes him to look up. Now he looks up and he sees a little crack way up high, and that's where the sunlight came down through. You see? And I think that's what makes use of color. And now he sees that little slit of light up there, and he takes, what's the little girl's name he leading around?
Becky.
Becky. And he says, Becky, there's a hole up there. Now we can get out of this cave. And they start climbing toward that hole. You see, Charles, that's why I think that color is wonderful to work with.
It leads the eye up the...
Yeah, there's a certain change. But color, I think, can be used much more for dramatic things. I think that anyone makes color films should study about color, the psychology of color, applied to motion pictures.
You had, didn't you, a special rheostat or something inside?
Oh, yes. Well, you know, Mr. Selznick, oh, dear man, I really have the greatest respect for Mr. Selznick, because if he wanted something, he would give you all the time and facility to go and carry it out. To me, he was one of the great independent producers. He said, Jimmy, he says, you know, we have a scene here where Tom Sawyer and Becky, they walk through a cave. It's a tunnel-like. He said, now, I don't want you to build a cave built for you that you can take one part side out and photograph it and light it, because I don't think it will look real. He said, I'm going to have them build this cave and tunnel, this tunnel they walk through, just the way it should be in the story. Now it's up to you now to go ahead and light it so it looked real. I'm going to build it real. Now you got to help it by making it look real by lighting. Well, you know, in those days in Technicolor, they needed about 800-foot candle. That's a lot of light. Well, to light this cave and the way they walked through, and Mr. Selznick said, I want to see just a dark screen. And suddenly you see the screen light up, and a hand comes in, and there's a candle, and it lights up the entrance. But you can't see beyond the entrance until they walk in, Tom leading little Becky walking through this tunnel, and the candle lights ahead of them, and they become silhouetted. But 800-foot candle, how am I going to light this cave? So my electrician and I got together. We tried to hide lights in and with dimmers, and it didn't work. It just was so artificial that we saw light coming in from other sources rather than from this candle source. So I thought, well, the only thing I can do is to build a harness and strap it on this boy and put his clothes over it, and I had a little thing out, so we mounted the largest globe that I could get. I think it was a 10,000 watt globe. Huge globe. But the boy's body could just cover it, hide it. And it gives off a lot of heat. So we pad this boy with asbestos vest and hung. And so it wouldn't hurt his eyes, because we only photograph his back, you see, from his back, going through this tunnel. So I had him put pinch nose glasses on Tommy with dark lenses on his glass, so the light wouldn't hurt his eyes, so he could see. And he held his candle and led Becky. And Becky had dark glasses on, so the light wouldn't hurt her eyes, and photographed. Well, that globe gave off about 350-foot candle to about 10 feet ahead of him. And they walked through. That's where we accomplished it. But the only thing I asked them to turn off the dripping water. They had dripping water dripping down from the cave. I said, no, that has to be, you forget that. Nobody missed the dripping water. I was afraid that the water would drop on the globe and it would blow up, you see.
Dangerous.
But the scene worked out.
Is it possible just to photograph a torch or a candle without any augmentation?
Oh, it's very difficult. Because you have to have other lights around. And the other lights just diminishes the light of the candle.
If you just had a black screen,
you can photograph striking a match, and the first glows of the match you can get. But after that first glow, then it's difficult, Charles.
It doesn't develop.
It doesn't develop. No, we haven't got the film quite. I think you could take 2 or 3 kitchen matches and light it and hold it close enough. With this black and white, we could get an exposure.
Not in colour?
Not in colour yet.
They still haven't perfected it then?
No.
Because I know that in the McGuires, in order to light the mine, you used tiny little quartz lights.
Yes, in Molly McGuires, I did have one shot. Unfortunately, it was cut out. It was one of my favorite shots, where Richard Harris was writing a letter home. No, he was writing a message to his girlfriend who had met in this little town, village, mining town. And all he had was an oil lamp. And I had a little globe, a size of smaller than a peanut. It was a globe that they had made to light up a certain instrument for the astronauts going to the moon. And I was able to secure about 6 of these little globes, because I need them first to put on the miners' caps to light up as they walked into the mining. And I used this one little globe in this one scene where Richard Harris was writing this letter, and all he had was this oil lamp, and I was be able to hide this globe behind this oil lamp to light up the whole scene. I photographed it in color. I think the globe gave me about 45-foot candle. Technically speaking, we'd have to use normally 100-foot to get a normal exposure. But being this was a light effect, I didn't need a 100-foot candle. So 45-foot, it just worked out beautifully. But you know what? They cut the scene out. There's so many scenes cut out. That's the most, frustrating thing for a cameraman. That sometimes you get certain scenes that it's just wonderful, and you say, oh my other cameraman, compatriot are going to see this, and they're going to appreciate it. You know, and it's wonderful that I love to do something sometime so that for my cameraman friends to say, oh, well, he did this, it's just right. But then it's cut out.
You should be able to keep a print yourself.
Oh, yes. I wish I could keep some of these things. But, you know, I have never kept things because I always felt that you make something, it doesn't belong to you anymore, it just belongs to the public. And I have never been a collector of things I've done. I wish I had kept
I know you
some of the
used
films.
you used ceiling sets and deep focus long before it became so widely publicized in Citizen Kane. You were using it in Transatlantic and so on.
Yes, Charles, I made a trip to the Orient before sound came in. And when I came back, I was away, not less than a year, but anyway, when I returned to the Hollywood, sound had come in. Do you know I couldn't get a job? Because they would say, have you made a sound picture? Naturally, I haven't. I said, I was away. Oh, well, it's a new thing, and it was a big mystery. Well, I went around looking for an opportunity to photograph a picture with sound. I just couldn't get in. Well, I went to a preview and I met Alan Dwan. He was there, who I had worked with before in the silent. Excuse me. Days at Lasky Studios, it was Paramount. I made a picture called, I forgot now, the horse, something with a horse in it. Anyway, he said, Jimmy, what are you doing? I said, nothing, I'm trying to find a job. He said, why don't you come over and see me? I'm at Fox.
Seahorses?
Yeah, seahorses. That's what I photographed with Alan Dwan. So one day I went over to see Alan Dwan, but he wasn't in, and I met William K. Howard. He said, what are you doing, Jimmy? I said, no, I just came over to see Alan Dwan, but he's not in. He said, are you working? I said, no, I can't get a job. I've been out looking for a job for a year. But they said sound is a mystery, and I have never made a sound picture. He said, come in the office. I want to talk to you. I went in. He said, you know, I'm going to make a picture called Transatlantic with Edmund Lowe, Myrna Loy. He says, I'm in a doghouse here at Fox. They signed me 2, 3 cameramen. Each time they take him away from me. He said, I'd like to have you do the picture for me. I said, fine, I love it. I need a job. He said, okay. He says, you come over and shoot some tests. But he says, you know, I've been having trouble with the tests. Most of the tests that come out, they're a little out of focus. You know, I don't know what. Something wrong with the lenses or something. Since they went into sound, they've been using these incandescent lighting, which is more or less on the red side, orange. So I thought, well, maybe the lenses are not corrected yet for this incandescent lighting. I didn't have a lot of money, so I invested in some new lenses. Taylor, Hobson, Cook, British lenses, very good lenses. And they came out some new lenses. I think it was corrected. I bought 3 lenses. Cost me about, I don't know, $800, something like that. So I went and shot the test. And I said, Bill, I said, you know, I had to buy these lenses my own. Now, it only takes 2 or 3 days to make the test. I said, if you can stretch these tests out for a week or 10 days, I'd earn enough money, if they didn't like the test, to pay for these lenses, you see. He said, okay, that's all right, I can arrange that. So we shot the test, but they liked it. They liked the way I made the test. So they engaged me for the film. And Bill Howard says, Jimmy, I want to give this picture a certain style. How can we go about making a certain style? I said, well, I could do it in some lighting, in a kind of a low, sketchy key lighting. It's a mystery thing. But I said, you know, Bill, I think one thing we could give it a style is to photograph the whole picture with a wide-angle lens, a 25 millimeter or 24, and just use that one lens, with the exception when we shoot the close-ups. Because if we use that wide-angle close-up, it would distort the people a little bit too much. And that changed the lens. Now we have to build the sets, you see, for this lens in a kind of a forced perspective. So we had an art director named Gordon Wiles. Well, he wanted to build the sets normal on the transatlantic liner. Well, with a wide-angle lens, it just didn't work out. The passageway were too wide. I said, make them narrower. And so we had to strike it and change its design. And we had quite some trouble, he and I. We just got so that we had a hard time getting along because I was making too many changes. And he didn't understand the wide angle. Well, by using a wide angle lens and stopping down a little to 4.5, 4, I could carry the depth of focus so that I said, Bill, you can have action any place. They'll all be sharp. Now you have someone over there 10, 15 feet away, he's sharp. You don't have to cut to a close-up, you see. Usually they're out of focus, you cut to a close-up so you could see them clearer. Then you cut back. Well, a lot of times your action is playing so well, you don't want to interrupt that action by cutting into a close-up, just because he was out of focus, you see. And it was wonderful. Well, to make a long story short, the film Transatlantic, we moved the cameras and we did everything, and it had a certain style. And for talkies at that period, it's revolutionized a certain thing photographically.
You used muslin ceilings, did you?
Yes, we used ceilings, we closed it in. And I think that was the beginning of what Greg Toland later in Citizen Kane called pan focus. Pan meaning overall focus.
It was always claimed that he originated that.
No, he didn't originate it. Greg and I were good friends. And we used to about soft focus lenses and that. And I told him what I was doing in Transatlantic. And he carried a little feather with Citizen Kane. He carried farther than I did, I must say, and he used what they call Waterhouse stops. That's, we don't turn the diaphragm, you drop a little slot in with the little hole in it that you figure for the exposure. These are technical things that only photographers will understand. But it doesn't make any difference whether it's Waterhouse or whether it's a diaphragm you close down. As long as you close down a wide-angle lens, the more you close down, the smaller the aperture, the more feel of sharpness you'd get, you see?
Yes.
And by using a wide-angle lens, it's very simple. They carry it more. But the fact that he said he originated it, I don't think, there's no one originated. It's originated by the one that used the lens. The length of focal length of lenses.
Well, you originated it, I think.
You see? The fact that I use it on this picture, Transatlantic, which, by the way, after 2 weeks, photographing this film. They didn't, the authority at Fox didn't know whether they liked it or not. But after 2 weeks, I noticed that the studio manager came over to the set, and I saw him one day looking up at me. I thought something was wrong. His name was Keith Weeks. He said, "Jimmy, you have a moment where you come down, I'd like to talk to you." So I did. He said, "What do you want?" He said, "Would you come to my office after work?" He says, "I'd like to talk to you. I want to give you a contract. Talk to you about a contract," you see. So I said, fine. I came in, went and talked to him. But he says, "We like your work. It's first, it was kind of rather strange. We didn't know we like it, but now everybody seemed to like your work, what you're doing." He said, "We'd like to give you a contract for 4 years." He said, "How much money you want?" So I told him. He said, "We can't pay you that kind of money." He said, "Everybody else is getting less money, and if we pay you that, they want that much." I said, "Look, I can't help about what they want, but if you want me, I said, this is what I want." And do you know, until I came there, about a month or so, I was out of a job for a year. But since they want me then, I said, well, I thought maybe this is the only chance I can, ask for a little more money. So I did sign up for a 3-4 year contract.
I'd like to ask you about one or two of the stars you photographed. To me, the most beautiful close-ups I've seen in any film were of Hedy Lamarr in Algiers.
Yes,
and,
yes.
What technique did you use to give her that beautiful, incredible look? Or was she simply so naturally photogenic that it didn't require any technique?
Well, in photography, Charles, the subject really has to be beautiful. We just can't go ahead and take a sow's ear and make it look a beautiful thing. We could make it interesting, but not beautiful. So when I was called to make a film called Algiers, with John Cromwell directing, who I made a picture for with Selznick called A Prisoner of Zenda. And he liked my work and liked me, and I had great respect for Mr. Cromwell. So he asked me to come and do Algiers. Walter Wanger was the producer. Had Charles Boyer and Hedy Lamarr. I think it was Hedy's first picture.
In America?
In America. I think I've heard of her, and I saw her in a film called Ecstasy. So I didn't think much about how beautiful I should make her, but I knew she was very lovely to photograph. And we had one sequence, a scene in this Casbah, and I read where Boye come to see her. And he fell in love with her. And he looked at her. He said how beautiful she was. And Mr. Cromwell said, "Jimmy," he said, "this is where we can make it pay off. So I wish you'd take your time now and make her look as beautiful as you can." So I did. I spent 2 hours to make her close-ups. We make close-ups of her throat, to her ears and eyes and mouth, And I diffused it, made it very lovely. So we ran the rushes, and she saw it. She said, "Oh, that's beautiful." She says, "Why didn't you make me look that beautiful in the other scenes?" I said, "Well, Hedy, I could do it." But she says, "I'm going to ask Mr. Wanger to remake all those close-ups to make it look as beautiful as this." I said, "Well, that's fine, but do you know what will happen?" She said, "What?" I said, "We're leading up to a certain thing. Now, if I make all the other close-ups as beautiful as this, then when we lead up to this, where do we go? We don't have any place to go any, because they all look alike. They all look so beautiful. You see? Now we're leading up to this, and this is where you really should. This is where Charles Bray saw you, and make you look so beautiful. Then from here on, everybody look you always the same. You're just beautiful. And you remember that. That's why he's going to follow you out where he shouldn't go down to get to the boat, to expose himself to get shot. So you see, in photography, you got to be able to use your lighting and camera to use photography dramatically. If I had made her as beautiful throughout, then when we come to this point, when Boye meets her in this Casbah and looked at her and she's so beautiful, it wouldn't pay off then.
No, he was seeing her with the eyes of his first love.
Yeah.
So that you have to graduate and
right.
step build it.
Right. Charles, let's have another drink.